to the public. Is there anyone who would like to address the Public Safety and Courts Committee? I don't have any slips. I don't see anybody moving. We'll move to our agenda items. I entertain a motion to approve 2 proposals from Branro for jail improvements not to exceed $59,473.70.
So moved.
Support.
I have motion and support. Dr. Boggs, can you?
Yeah, so we have two things going on here. So as part of bond reform, the individuals who actually stay in jail have changed. And as such, we have a lot more people who need additional other kinds of supports. There's a lot of screaming that lasts for long periods of time, a lot of emotional disturbances. And so we're trying to move where the jail guards are located, the corrections officers, so that they have some distance for being able to hear that, which means moving the command booth to another part so that they have some sound barriers. And then second is creating one of the cells into a padded cell area for people that are on suicide watch or believe that they could potentially hurt themselves. And so this adds a little extra expenses. I mean, we have the second oldest operating jail in the state. There is not, it does not look like we're going to be getting a new jail anytime soon, so we do have to make some adjustments to what we currently are working with. And with that, I will ask Tammy if you'd like to say a few things on behalf of the jail as the jail administrator.
First of all, I think most of you have been over and toured the jail. I know you have. I'm not sure if you had, but I welcome you to come over. The center control area that Dr. Boggs is talking about is basically like a caged area. So you're like in a bird cage. So you get the individuals that come into jail and they're directly right in front of you. That same area is where the officers meet daily to interact and talk about the inmates, meet with the shifts coming on. They can hear it. There's absolutely no confidentiality there. So this will help with the sound deadening walls, eliminate the caged area so we can actually see out there. The officers, that's where they take their breaks. That's where they take their lunches. So it's pretty bad when you come to work and inmates know about your life. So that will help with that. The other regarding the padded room, let's face it, the individuals, most of them that come in are not happy. They're either under the influence of something or they've got mental health illnesses. First thing they want to do is start beating on the door with their head. They want to, head bang it. They want to dive off things, which causes officers to put hands on. The padded room would help eliminate that, so we're not putting the hands on, and they're more safe for them and for us as well. So.
Do they pad the floor and everything or not?
Some of them do. I looked at Saginaw counties, which I think the same company did it, and I believe they did not pad the floor.
Okay.
I would kind of recommend not.
Okay.
Due to the fact that, some of the ones, they have a drain on the floor to use the bathroom. I don't want that. I would rather have a regular facility. That way we can still use it for maybe like a medical room or something like that, but it's still protected because you got the walls, the doors, everything is all padded. So.
And I'm sure it's true, but just if you're moving the sort of cage area where officers are away from where the high need people are, there's cameras involved. Those rooms are watched, even though you can't.
And it's not moving the area; it's securing the area. So it's the same area, but instead of the cage that's surrounding it, it'll be actually soundproofing walls and actually glass windows. But yeah, that same area is where all the cameras are, where they monitor cameras. They, release people, so you may be booking somebody in, and then you got the HIPAA problem as well. And then they, like I said, the officers interact in there. So.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough room in there to move all that stuff around.
No.
At least since I've been
I
in
thought
there.
Dr. Boggs said farther away, so I
No,
Yeah,
it's going to be in the same
Okay.
area. It's just
Okay.
going to secure it
Okay.
and have a little more confidentiality and safety. Plus, we have the where they can open up doors, electronic doors right there. So all you'd have to do. The cage is not secure. You can open that up. So this is, you know, for the community as well, protect the community.
Is it budgeted?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
And
where's
there-
the oldest jail? You said we're second.
I don't know who's the oldest.
We're
just
in
curious.
the lowest 5, I know that.
Oh, okay.
I think
Maybe
some,
we are the oldest?
yeah, I don't know, but I'd hate to see what theirs look like. But I welcome you to come over.
I would like to, but a statement made by Administrator Boggs piqued my interest. You said that something had occurred recently.
Bond reform of who gets, during COVID, they changed who is being kept in the jail. They're doing a lot more PR, personal recognizance bonds of individuals that were normally held. For example, we used to have a trustee program where we would have, what would you say, minimal security individuals going out and doing work throughout the county. Those individuals are no longer in jail normally. They're usually bonded out. So it's a different clientele.
It's more the assaultive, a lot of people that are under the influence, drugs.
Yeah, to me, that's significant,
Yeah.
though, that it's
Yeah,
a security issue for the officers.
right. And one more thing to touch on too, probably about 2 months ago, I had an officer quit because of the mental health in there. And, I mean, you can imagine coming to work and you're trying to do your job and you got this person screaming for 12 hours. He couldn't deal with it. He just, I can't deal with it, so.
Don't we have more tethers than we used to too? I mean, there's more people out on tethers.
We do, but that is kind of under the court system now.
Yeah,
They have their.
yeah,
special-
but that helps that situation too.
Well,
More
yeah,
of your non-violent
Right.
Yeah.
individuals
Right.
are
Yeah.
released as opposed to a higher population like we used to have before COVID.
So is it accurate to say we have lower numbers but a higher concentration because of that, of the more
we don't get the.
intensive, assaultive?
Right. Yeah, you don't get the DWLs, you know, driving while suspended. You don't, we're getting a few FLC, but you don't get a lot of the minor crimes anymore, medium security, not medium security, but minor crimes.
They're just not being held. They're being given personal recognizance bonds and sent on their way. That also plays into the other initiatives that we've been working on with pretrial services, because with them not being in the jail, there now becomes a need to monitor their whereabouts and where they are, which is part of our other work that we've been doing. So one policy change created another policy issue.
Okay, any further questions or discussion from the committee? All in favor of moving this to tomorrow night, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and then item B is, I would entertain a motion to approve the proposal from Branro for court safety counter and doors not to exceed $23,230.
So,
Support.
I have a motion in support. Dr. Boggs.
This has been a long-standing issue on the second floor of district court, which is where family court and probate are. On one side of the hallway, on the right side of the hallway, is an entrance into the judge's chambers. You kind of walk into an open architecture area, and it's a makeshift lobby when they put file cabinets in front of it to form a counter, and there's no door there, and you can breeze right back to the judge's chambers. So one of these designs is to encase the filing cabinets, just like Julie's area in her office, where I think it was the other way around. They had the counter and then slid the filing cabinets under it because it's 100 and some years old. But we're going to go the opposite direction. We have the filing cabinets that are all level across the top. They're going to build a counter around it with these half doors on one part and a lock on it so you can't just breeze on back to the judge's side. Then on the other side, on family court, there's kind of a little office area right in between these two hallways. That'll have the same kind of counter style around it too, except that one's more of an L because of the way you come in and the door would be over here. However, still on the left side, there are two hallways that go right back to where the staff are located with another hallway. Those have always been open. There's no security there. We're just going to enclose the hallways with two doors. We've gotten a couple of different bids to look at this. This one, Brand Rose, is by far cheaper, and I think that it's gonna be a better quality, because it's gonna, instead of being drywall and things of that nature, it's gonna have a lot more wood related to it, so that it looks more in line with some of the other countertops that we have throughout the county. But the other ones will be steel locked magnetic doors like what we have throughout the rest of the building.
That's both areas?
Yeah, both areas for 23.
Yeah.
Any questions, discussion?
This
Sounds
is
important.
budgeted,
Mhm.
and the chief judge is the one who has reviewed all of these. He feels that it meets what he wants to do up there and has signed off on it.
Okay. Anything else? All right, all in favor of moving this to tomorrow night, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, and that moves forward. Just before our last call to the public, I have just a request, Dr. Boggs. Can you tell me if in the financial reports we get, are there line items that tell us where the opioid money is and what has been spent?
It's a special account. There's $540,000 that we've received so far. You've allocated $165,000 to pretrial services at this time.
Okay.
And it's, I'm glad you mentioned and brought that up, because that's what we've received so far. Earlier today, we received communication from our attorney about our Rite Aid settlement, because they filed for Chapter 11 reorganization. So we will see how that impacts our settlement amounts moving forward.
That was one of the smaller ones though, wasn't it?
It was one of the smaller ones, but that is included in that calculation that Mac provided you about what the monthly amount will be.
Yeah.
So until we have some of those settled, until we figure out exactly and they're all done, I wouldn't advise spending any more than we've already spent.
Okay. Last call to the public. Is there anyone who wishes to address the Public Safety and Courts Committee? All right, with that, we'll adjourn this meeting and move into Health and Human Services.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, anyone from the public? Seeing no one. Our first agenda item, I would look for a motion.
Feel free to amend the agenda.
Oh, that's right. Sorry about that. We do have an unfortunate vacancy in our health department. So item C, if you would, is going to be a motion to fill that vacancy.
Say that again, I didn't catch it.
We had someone give their notice over at the health department today, so.
Okay.
Fairly important position that I think Larry would like to post as soon as possible.
Health educator.
Yep, I'm sorry, what was that?
Health educator.
Thank you. All right, and thank you for that reminder. I would look for a motion to approve the request from SCOA for a 10% indirect rate until such time as their study is completed and the new rate schedule is approved by the Board of Commissioners.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported.
So remember that we have had some extensive conversations about covering capital outlay expenses from SCOA. And that for the most part, it's not really the county's place to cover those. In some areas, it is prohibited for us to cover those. And so one of the ways that often organizations that work with government entities or grant agencies use a rate study to determine an indirect rate or an administrative fee. So we use a company called MGT, who does those for us with our grants for the court and the state. And it says the approximate amount of what it costs to use this room, for example, or what it costs to operate a particular building and those services. So we met with SCOA and we discussed this indirect rate, we discussed, or the idea of an administrative fee. They then called up NGT, the county, SCOA and NGT had a meeting to discuss this and what the process would look like moving forward so that they can do a complete and total rate study about what it would cost for their services that come out of the senior citizen millage. As part of that, the MGT requested, because it's going to take them at least 3 months, maybe 4, to complete the study, if the county would be open to what they call a de minimis 10%, which is allowed under the IRS rules, so that they can charge an indirect fee of 10% on the bills they already give us. So currently, we receive reimbursable bills under our contract. So if they give us a bill for $100, we would then add a de minimis 10%, so it would be $110. Well, they would add it and they would give it to us. It would be an additional administrative fee. They can then collect that money to use for their capital outlay or other projects. Now, the de minimis short 10% that they're going to get for 3 months will not be really capital projects. That's not going to be a lot of money. But over the long run, when they actually arrive at their rate study and they arrive at an acceptable, approved rate for their kind of organization with the IRS rules, then they'll be able to readjust their contract with the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, any questions on that?
Is that just for 1 year
It's probably going to be for about 3 months. And then when they have the study complete, they're going to have to come here and present the entire study to you. This is a stopgap temporary measure so that they are receiving funds.
So when you say a rate study, and I get the general idea, is it kind of like a job costing?
No, so for example, it's some of the things that you wouldn't cover under a reimbursable rate. So for example, us using this space, we're paying for people to be here, we're paying for the lights, those things would all be reimbursed. But there's some kind of expense for this actual room and the use of this room and the fact that someone built it at some point in time and there's a depreciation of the building over time and different things like that. All of that is created into what it costs to actually do something per hour then, instead of it just being, it costs us X number of dollars for their salaries. It's that larger cost that's not captured in just reimbursing.
Okay.
So
The bottom line, after the study, they present the study, that will be a justification on their part to charge us more than the de minimis.
well, maybe not more. It'll depend on how the study comes back. The study could come back less, or the study could come back more. So for example, some organizations such as the state of Michigan will set a rate for someone no matter what. So if you want to work with the state, it's 8%. Now some universities will set one, and at once upon a time, a couple of the universities in the state used to be an indirect of 40, 45, and 51%, which meant you take that amount and you increase it by that. And the state of Michigan, when they did work with some of them, would say, no, 8% is the cap, that's all we're going to pay. So it really, some foundations set it at 10, some foundations set it at 12, but we'll see what they come back with from their study and what MGT recommends. Now, you don't have to accept MGT's proposal or their proposal to you. You can negotiate, you can discuss it, but this is the first step in a longer process to get them to having a rate study.
And if I may, then what this is going to solve is it will solve the problem with when they want rooms, kitchen improvements, etc. This is the monies that they will use for that, so we won't, going forward, we won't be getting requests to do capital improvements for them.
That's exactly right, because really, if you do a capital improvement on their building, you're increasing the value of the building for them, and at some point they could sell that building. and that's taxpayer money used to increase their position. And so we want to make sure that we're not doing that.
But they can do it indirectly. You can
Correct.
Take those indirect funds.
We use the indirect funds for whatever the SCOA policy says that we can. It would be essentially undesignated funds, because we want to avoid any claims of unjust enrichment for them. And this is one of the issues that we always have to be careful with when a government entity works with a nonprofit or even a private entity, is that we don't have any issues of unjust enrichment.
But is that a distinction without a difference?
It works for the.
It's allowed, yeah, by the IRS.
Right.
Because it's assumed that there's some indirect costs, right?
Yeah.
Of, they served meals and they got reimbursed for the paper plates and food and everything else, but there's some indirect cost
Correct.
that is hard to put a number on, and so they just use a random number.
It's not only reasonable, it's much more predictable. So that they know they're gonna have this money coming in, and we've agreed on the rate. And going forward, we won't have any of the friction that's, not that it's been bad, but the discussion has been there about who should pay for what, so I think this is it's a good solution.
Well, it's the start.
I understand the rate study. What I don't understand is the extra 10% for 3 months, what the purpose of that is.
It's to get us started so that they're not waiting for MGT. It's allowed under the IRS rules for them to start charging it.
The 10% is basically going to get funneled to MGT for the rate study.
No, it's going for them to start their process of collecting an indirect rate.
They could have been collecting an indirect rate all along. They haven't. So
Yeah.
we want to get them started as soon as possible and not make them wait until the set is back.
That's correct.
I guess I don't understand why, not knowing the results of the study, not knowing if the rate is going to come back higher or lower, why you just want to automatically start giving them more now.
Because we could have been giving them money all along, I guess would be my answer to that. We honestly could have given them a lot more than they're ever going to get from us.
I mean, we can
We
give
can-
everybody a lot more money, right?
Yeah,
That's where I'm struggling is if they were fine with this, the rate they're getting paid now for this whole time until they want to improve the buildings, which they own, not the county, not any governmental body, why do we need to give them an extra 10% for 3 months just because?
because they're entitled to it.
It's the start of the process, and MGT had suggested this so that they didn't have to wait till the study was completed, so they could start adding funds for these things. Because MGT wants to do it right, not do it quickly. And every month that they wait is a month that they cannot collect their indirect rate.
They've gone basically since the beginning, as far as I know, of them not collecting an indirect rate. Why do we need to start now and not wait till we have the study with some data to make a decision?
And why haven't they? If they could have, why haven't
They can't, because the contract is a reimbursable contract. It's prohibited under the contract at the moment.
Okay,
So Dr. Boggs made this suggestion about collecting an indirect cost to help them have some undesignated funds that they can start putting into capital projects, because it was part of the contract that they could not do that.
That's right.
And
Okay,
so
I
contracts
didn't-
being renegotiated.
That's right.
that's the part I did not understand.
They could not do it. They cannot charge you an indirect without you agreeing to
And we haven't agreed to it.
it. And no, once you vote on this, you'll be doing it for a temporary period of time until the study is done. Right now, you only do reimbursements.
Well, once the study is done, then we would still have to vote on the new contract,
That's
correct?
correct. This
So
is
when you
just a
say it's the
temporary-
first step, okay.
Yep, this is a temporary stopgap so they can start building up their indirect funds for their growth or whatever it is they wish to improve upon the building.
So it's still taxpayer money, whatever you call
Yes.
it, and it's money they can use to perhaps enhance the value of their structure, which might presumably would be an advantage to them down the road. And so that's what I get back to with it.
But
We're kind of, by doing this, we're kind of conceding that
One's allowed under the IRS, one is not. Well, one's prohibited by the Constitution, one's allowed.
It's like there's an assumption that there is an ongoing disadvantage to them because they are providing a public service in a private building. So there is some cost to them that they can't directly bill. So that assumption then allows us to give them some money for that disadvantage that has been to them because of providing a public service.
So as part of that renegotiating of the contract, we'll have more discussions.
Oh yeah, you're gonna get a whole presentation from them and MGT on the rate, cost, what it is you want to agree to, how you want to rewrite the contract. You'll have an entire new contract for you to approve. This is the first step in the process.
I guess if I was negotiating a contract, not knowing what the final cost is gonna be, I wouldn't concede my position and say, I'm gonna pay you more now. And then when the contract comes, you have no chance of saying, oh, I'm gonna hold my position or I'm gonna move back from it because you don't know the real cost. So why would you concede for 3 months? Just, in my mind, if you're this close to the finish line, wait till you get the data, wait till you get the answer before you make a decision.
Right, and there could be will be a lot more discussion with that contract.
Can we make the contract retroactive when we vote on it? Probably not.
Wouldn't recommend that. I mean, this is an allowable expense suggested by NGT because they're gonna come back with an indirect rate. And it may or may not be more or less than 10%, but this is one of the rules that's allowed, and I think they cite which Federal Register it comes out of in their letter, that allows them to do this. If you agree to it.
If I may put in my 2 cents worth here, we have a couple different things that we have to look at. The people in Muskoka were probably not, they were under what may have been a false impression, but actually one that this body went along with, and that was that we would be giving them money for occasional capital improvements. We have decided, we have in effect changed the game by saying, no, we may have done that in the past, but we're not going to give you money for capital improvements anymore. Now, if they had known that, they probably, I would think, would have renegotiated their contract quite a bit earlier, saying, well, obviously, we're using our building and our lights and et cetera, and we will need more than the simple reimbursement because that doesn't cover our expenses. When you only reimburse our direct costs, we have buildings and vehicles and people and so on. Therefore, we have recognized that we are going to go down this road, and as such, knowing we are, we're simply making a sophisticated wild guess at what it is we're going to be paying them, and the experts have recommended the 10%, which probably is not far off and isn't even a great deal of money. But there is a certain amount of good faith on our part, again, because we don't entirely come to this problem with clean hands. We're kind of changing the way we want to do things. I like this way much better. It's much more predictable. And saying that for 3 months, which isn't a long time, and 10%, which is probably very little off of what is eventually going to be settled for, I don't know that for a fact, it seems a reasonable in-the-middle solution to me to say, all right, let's just start out here and we'll figure out the long-term rate. It seems a little, I don't know, a little disingenuous of us to say we're going to put it off till we get the study, but maybe it's not. But I can see the point of wanting to get them started. I certainly see the point from their point of view that we haven't been covering their expenses, and we're not just not giving them money for capital improvements. I was against giving them money for capital improvements, but apparently that wasn't done in the past. So we probably should have been paying some kind of a fee above direct reimbursement for some time now.
And going back, there were 2 options. You could have them give you an interest in their building in exchange for those fees for capital outlet, but that will only work for 2 out of 3 of their buildings. because one already has a type of encumbrance on it. The one in Morris, it has to go back to the village of Morris in the event of it. So even if they gave you some kind of interest in their building, that would only work for 2/3 of their properties and not the other one. So in our discussions with them and based on what we've talked to them about, we had said an indirect rate would be the best way for moving forward, an indirect study. And so this is the first step along that journey.
I don't think we want an interest in our buildings.
No. And I think you bring a good point, Greg. Going back, I think when you walk through Tracy's office, you see, you know, just because we've always done it that way, before Tracy and before Dr. Boggs, things weren't always done the right way. So maybe there was a false impression given. But I think starting things like this in motion put us on the track of doing it the right way. Although, I do wonder, so when we start to negotiate this contract, are we then looking at other options?
Such as?
Well, I don't know, if you contract with someone, could you possibly look at other people to contract with, or?
That is up to the board. They're a service provider of a senior service. So it's not a millage for SCOA, it's a millage for senior services. So the board can go whatever direction they wish.
Well, I think it kind of opens up some other questions. You know, are we kind of just forgetting about anyone else that does work for seniors, or could we get a better value for our taxpayer dollars, or?
Well, if I may, so the Council on Aging does contract with other senior service providers. So there's sort of an umbrella of senior services. So they have contracts with, I don't know, His Way Home Health Care. I don't know that for sure. I'm just throwing out some of the, like the home health care providers and that sort of thing. So they have some contracts. And Valley Area Agency on Aging does that same kind of thing. So SCOA is the umbrella here and kind of the funnel of money that comes from VAAA, comes to the Council on Aging, and then is distributed to people that they contract with as well. So.
I think that our long-term relationship with SCOA is always something we can look at. Probably not something we can look at in as short a term as we're talking about. Some of us have had discussions about the value for the dollar, and I honestly don't know that. But
Right, I
this
don't
is not
either.
in any way locking us into we can never change this type of situation.
Well, one of the things I like about the de minimis 10% is this gives us time to make sure that we're doing it right. We're not going through and making decisions in a rush towards the money. When we get this, I mean, you guys meet once a month, so when you get this, there'll be a monthly cycle for them to present to you, and then negotiating the contract, and then the approval of the contract. Once their rate study is done, it could still take another 2 or 3 months, depending on cycles and when people meet and when things are negotiated. So this does not put a rush on anything to do the 10%.
I mean, you can certainly do an RFP, but I don't think there's another organization in the county that provides extensive senior services, but we can certainly ask.
I think my concern is it the best value for the dollar, and that's why I would want to wait for the study to come out to see what that cost really is.
Well, that's not gonna give you a cost of that. That's gonna give you a cost of what it takes to operate their building. Those other questions that you want answered are things you're gonna have to ask them when they start presenting.
When we do the contract.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, frankly, I'm not too concerned with what was done in the past, especially if it wasn't quite proper. So I don't think we should be reluctant to go ahead and correct that, whatever reliance the other party might have placed on that. But I do, this idea of indirect costs, and I guess in my dealing with contracts, I've seen it there. I can't say that I've ever looked really deeply behind what these indirect costs were. You always see them in contracts, so I appreciate that it's a proper thing to do when you're trying to redress the other party's costs in a certain way, so I can appreciate that. I'm inclined not to, frankly, I'm inclined not to support this, but I gotta give credit to administrative bodies. I think it really was a kind of an ingenious way to deal with something that has perhaps been somewhat problematic in the past, but to move us forward, and I am impressed with that, but I also have a concern for the idea that we're maybe kind of positioning ourselves not in the most favorable place before we even begin to negotiate it, so.
All right, lots of good, Gary?
Yeah, I've been on that board for several years, and they do a lot of work, good work for the seniors, so they don't waste their money. We're real efficient over there, so I've been on it, and we have to make decisions every day. And,
I wouldn't want anything I've said to imply that I don't agree with you, Gary, and of course it.
well, that's
all the rest
what
of the
I'm getting the
board.
impression that that's what's kind of going on, but that's,
No, I don't mean to give that impression, but, and I guess of all the rest, except maybe Gary and I are the ones that are closest in age, and I do appreciate
I qualify.
what they do, but. Okay.
You guys looking for meals discounts, or?
yeah, they help out people that can't pay, and they give the Meals on Wheels, and the people that go there, and they make sure that they depend on them, and they check on them in case they're sick or need some extra help, and it's just a very good organization. They keep track of, they call people all the time, they got a special thing they call and check on them. It's, they have a lot of volunteers that do work there, so they have a maintenance person that worked there for years, and he just kind of got wore out and couldn't do it anymore, so he did on his own time. He fixed a lot of stuff, so we didn't have to pay to have a contractor, a plumber come in, or electrician come in and fix a light bulb and all that. So we're trying to look for somebody else to volunteer now. He's been there for years, and we're going to miss him. So, I mean, those are the things that go on behind the scenes that you guys don't know a thing about. So
Well, that's true, and thank you for mentioning that.
that's just one item, you know.
Right. But again, we have to ask those questions to do the best job we can up here, and I do appreciate that, your point of view. Anybody else? Anybody else want to continue to discuss this, or?
Well
If-
phrased.
Okay, if not, if there's no further, we'll go ahead. All those in favor of moving this forward signify by saying aye. All those opposed, aye, and that moves forward. Our next agenda item will be, the motion to fill a vacancy, so I would entertain that motion for the health educator.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Larry, did you want to?
Yeah, we've got some real unfortunate news today. We're losing Grace Dennis, our health educator for the past 5 years. She's very big in the community, working on a lot of things. Livingston County made her an offer too good to turn down, so our loss is going to be Livingston County's game, but we're going to miss her. So February 9th is her last day, so we've got multiple positions to fill.
And don't forget to file the paperwork.
Yeah. She already gave me her notice, so she's a big loss. It's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah, very sorry to hear that.
There's a lot of people in Livingston County.
Hey, I mean,
Well,
I gotta,
Going back to the wage study, remember the wage study looks at comparable counties, and the ones that surround us are not comparable.
Right.
Because they have much higher taxable values, and that will always be the case. You're never gonna be able to pay them that high of an amount.
Can I just say something? I did obtain the wage study that Livingston just had because we were doing some comparisons. Their elections clerk starts out at $22 an hour. These are positions you just don't want to lose someone to, and then they're, yeah, I mean, $2 to $3 per position that we compare to, it's like, kills me. I'm sure they were able to offer her a lot more.
I'm enjoying it in Livingston County. But if nothing else,
Presentation.
well, I thought we'd vote on this and then do the presentation last, just in case Larry wanted to get out of here.
Oh, no, he has to stay.
Okay. All those in favor of moving that forward, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. All right, and then that will bring us to our Families Against Narcotics presentation.
So we have, they have approached us about doing, Jane Brown has approached about presenting. We have prepared a 5-minute area for them to present to the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, thank you, and I'm going to introduce Billy Patton. She's our county coordinator for Families Against Narcotics, and we're the only chapter in the state that has a paid county coordinator, so I'm really happy and proud of her. Stepping up and proud of us for doing that. I'm going to turn it over to her.
Okay. Hi everybody, like Jane said, I'm Billy Joe Patton, County Coordinator. Can I get a quick show of hands? Anybody here heard of Families Against Narcotics? Most people, do you know what Families Against Narcotics actually does in the community? Anybody? We are a very well-rounded service in Shiawassee County. We help people get into treatment centers. We have a recovery coach, which is a person in long-term recovery who works with individuals who are struggling with addiction. We have a family coach, somebody that can coach family members of, say your son is struggling with an addiction issue. We have a family coach who's been through those things that can work with these people. We have a program called Hope Not Handcuffs, which we are working with area authorities right now, trying to get launched up off the ground, which is another foot in the door for people to make it into treatment facilities instead of ending up in our jails and prisons.
We went to all of the area school districts this last year, all 8 of them with our DEFY program, which is Drug Education for Youth, and that's a program Doug Chapman started a few years ago. I had a great first year, then COVID, we had a great last year. And initially when we were contacting schools, we were making 2 and 3 and 4 contacts, we'd like to do this program. This last year when we contacted them, they said, when can you be here? So really evolved. Hope Not Handcuffs is a really big deal. Hope Not Handcuffs is a statewide program, and I really encourage you to look at that in your flyers, okay, in the little packets that we gave everybody. They have 160 police departments and associations with counties for this program. It's unbelievable, and we've met with all chiefs in the county. We've met with individuals in each police department, and we're moving forward with that. So hopefully that will come into fruition soon in the first quarter of next year. And one of our partners is Memorial Healthcare. Another one is the Shiawassee Foundation. And we have a lot of support, from all of these little agencies. And one reason we're here is, you mentioned earlier, the opioid money. And we spend about between $15,000 and $20,000 between our rent, between Billy's salary, and between all of our promotional things. We had a professional movie and flyer booklet made for our DEFY program last year to share with physicians' offices and parents. We had a parent county meeting last year that we hosted across the districts, all the districts. And so consequently, we spend between $15,000 and $20,000 a year. And with the opioid funds coming in at $4.5 million, Amy Delinky said she's our coordinator that is a liaison between the settlement money and then the counties getting their money. And she's been having meetings with FAN. And FAN chapters, believe it or not, is working as some of the county's fiduciary for all these funds. And also some board members of FAN in different counties are sitting on the boards the committees to decide, where their county money is going. So that's how impactful FAN really is about the opioid crisis. And you might know, you might not know, but there's several years that this opioid money can be spent across. I think it's 18 to even 30 years. But I really encourage you to spend the money up front to solve the problem, to improve the problem, to educate, as prevention, as opposed to holding on to the money and waiting those decades, because by then the problem magnifies. And, it doesn't get better on its own. You have to take steps to improve the situation, And the rules state that 85% of these funds have to be spent directly on the opioid crisis. 15% can be indirect. We talked a little bit about that a few minutes ago. So it's a lot of money. And FAN, if you look through your folders, a lot of these programs have already been established by FAN, okay? And I really encourage you to rely on FAN. Our FAN Inc. is in Macomb County. They have a lot bigger problem than Shiawassee, but the programs have been started. It costs less to go with a program that's established than try to reinvent the wheel and start from scratch and make your flyers and figure out how the administration of these things. I really encourage you to take a look at FAN, on the website. Spend a few minutes, educate yourself. And hopefully we'll be back with some programs after hopefully you'll hear more about Hope Not Handcuffs. We try to do press releases, but one of our recovery coaches said we are the best kept secret in Shiawassee County. And, we work with Memorial Healthcare. They want us in their emergency room to do counseling. Doug Chapman, I'm going to piggyback on something that Tammy said a few minutes ago. One thing that he has said in the past is he really wants counseling for inmates. At the beginning of COVID, he could have counselors come in if people had already established some counseling, if they, for drug rehabilitation. If an inmate didn't have that link already, they couldn't start it when they were incarcerated. That's one thing that Doug has said that he would like to start because it's needed. And a little bit about Tammy's discussion just explains how much that is needed for those people struggling. I don't know if did that.
That was your time.
Oh, that was up. I thought I had 1 minute. Okay, I'm sorry.
2 minutes over.
Okay.
Thanks for this.
Sorry. Okay, 2 minutes over. I guess
Well, we
we're done.
do, if there are any questions, we had decided beforehand that we'd hold questions till after, so were there any?
I have one. How is Hope Not Handcuffs different than the Angel program that is already here?
The Angel program is specific to the Michigan State Police Departments.
Okay.
It is, the difference is when you go into the Angels program, they run a lien. It's focused around the court system and imprisoning. Whereas the Hope Not Handcuffs, they bypass that. We don't run a lien on the people coming through the door that say, I'm addicted to this substance and I really need help today. We get those people into treatment. This doesn't remove the punishment that comes with whatever warrants may be out for that individual, but it brings that person to a treatment facility to allow them to get into a better state of mind before they have to face those pending charges.
I've worked with the Angel program and the Shiawassee Police Department does it, so it's not just state police. I don't know if they have some agreement because Laura Archer, Kevin Lankard, and I worked on that, putting that in place at Shiawassee Police Department, and it is a ride to rehab. Someone can walk into the Shiawassee Police Department and say, I want to go to rehab, and we'll drive them. So they were training drivers to do that.
It's like the Hope Not Handcuffs. However, Angels do not transport because in the FAN program they do not.
Okay.
Yes, they might in MSP. I'm not sure. One thing that's majorly different is if the individual does not have insurance, FAN pays for their extended stay, and they also pay for and they pay for the transportation. However, it is not the angel. The angel just talks with them, helps them fill out the form. And now, one step that is a lot better. In the past, angels with MSP called around, helped them find a facility that was open, could take a man or woman, you know. And now FAN has hotlines where you call an 800 number, the angel does or the individual, and they know of available beds around. And they arrange for transportation and tell them, we'll be here at this time and be ready to go. But they still have angels who do fill out the forms, okay? And it's like a one-page.
So it's similar.
Very similar, right?
thank
But hope not handcuffs.
Okay, I guess I have one, I don't know if it's so much question, but you, and I appreciate your pitch about the opioid money, because we're gonna have to face that at some point, but you suggested that the sheriff has been involved with some of your programs or as an endorsement.
He's on our board, he's our vice president.
Oh, all right, so you
The
do
master is on our
have,
board.
I guess that answers my question. My premise for that COVID money is that we, as, or at least I as a commissioner, are interested in hearing what our staff people, county people, what they're recommending. It's not an unlimited amount of money. So I guess my interest is first turn to the people that are in our employ and close to us. But it sounds like you do have a relationship with the sheriff, and so that he would presumably be in a position to explain the value of your program to us. Okay.
Judge Stewart is on our board. He was on our executive board, now he's on our advisory board.
That's good too.
Larry Johnson is on our advisory board.
So you've got those contacts.
How is FAN currently funded?
We call for donations, we write grants, yeah. FAN Inc. just got over $50 million, and it's not the opioid money, it's from the state, and that is how all the recovery coaches and family coaches are paid. So our Shiawassee County coaches, recovery coaches, are paid by FAN Inc.
State of Michigan.
State of
You're
Michigan,
talking
right, yeah. And then they get SAMHSA money also, heavy grants from them also, which is a federal organization, okay. But no, we knock on doors, we have Run Drugs Out of Town, we make a little money from that, we write grants, we make money from that. And that's another reason we're here, because I think we're gonna be hard pressed moving forward, knocking on doors, going to Young's, different places, when they say, we're getting taxpayer money to combat this opioid crisis in our county. You know, why should we fund this? You know, and I know I would think twice, you know, if I were a business owner, where my money is going to be spent, you know, my charitable dollars. So, and FAN is good. FAN is really a great organization. Between, you know, their medical background, their counselors, they're proactive, they're counseling for Stronger Together. Billy just started the Stronger Together chapter. It's for family and individual counseling, to have a support group. Some of the other things, Run Drugs Out of Town, she had a candlelight vigil in December for individuals who have lost family members. And then there's the rehabilitation part. A big thing for me is prevention. Go to the schools, talk to the kids, you know, get the word out there. I grew up on the generation that, you know, if fry pan with, you know, this is your brain on drugs, you know, we knew better, but, you know, that's not the culture today. You know, media is different, phones are different, accessibility is different, it's very different, very, very different. And kids were very receptive to our presentations. You know, could have heard a pin drop, you know, when we went to Lothrop, Langsburg, Perry, Byron, Bancroft, Corona, Owasso. We were everywhere.
I have one other question, and then we'll probably wrap it up unless anybody else has a question. So one of the things that I know that I've looked at is success rates. So when you say that, you know, you're paying for the rehab and paying for all of these things. And my understanding is that success rates in a lot of these programs are very low.
That's why they are so diligent with counseling after rehab facility, and that's the part of a recovery coach. And I wish Sean were here. We have a recovery coach that lives in Langsburg. He's wonderful. He follows up with people when they're released. You know, how are you doing? He spends time with them. He you know, helps them with jobs, helps them with support groups, everything. And,
I've met several recovery coaches.
And Lisa Bashline is another person from, a wonderful person from Langsburg. She lost a son a number of years ago, and she's a family recovery coach. And, you know, same thing, works with families, does a lot for them, and is paid by Fan Inc. This program started in 2007. It was a judge in Macomb County. Her neighbor was a police officer, and they talked over their fence about, you know, what could happen, how can they improve their community. 3 individuals in their high school died of overdose within a couple months of each other. And, you know, then they had a community forum, and from that, Fan started.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the history of it.
Do we have any
Success.
other questions, or we're gonna?
Just touching on your question, the success rate is really difficult to really pinpoint a number on that. But Fan has a lot of programs that do the aftercare, like Jane mentioned, recovery coaching. We also have scholarships for sober living facilities, so that once people do, say, 30 days in an inpatient treatment center, they're not going back out into that old lifestyle, you know, going and staying on mom's couch and running wild on the weekends
Yes, I
sort of
do know.
situation.
I do
So we offer sober living facilities as well, or excuse me, scholarships for sober living facilities, where we cover the first 3 to 4 weeks of somebody's stay, and then that gives them enough time to get a job and be able to cover their own stay. And it's that loving care and continuing to do so is what helps people in recovery. And that's why I said when I started out, like Fan being a broad spectrum of recovery, because we do stick with these people from start to finish.
There's
I
another
do understand
program,
that.
it just started, it's called Redirect, and it's for younger kids that make some mistakes, and they redirect them. They do counseling, they meet with them in juvenile, you know, court systems, programs, but they help them, like Billy said. They call, they have meetings with them, they help them make better decisions, they help them with their environment, and catch them at an earlier age, you know.
Okay.
I was a teacher, retired teacher, and we called people frequent flyers. 90% of our time was on 10% of the people as far as punishment went. You know, you can redirect them, then you will eliminate those problems later. You know, it's very
but-
impactful.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we are gonna wrap it up unless any of my fellow commissioners have anything else. All right, well, thank you ladies very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Yep.
Cool. A few months, thank you.
Anything else to come before our committee here